people probably been wondering, what's Germany got to do with what's going on in this country? Currency is not redeemable in gold. Its value depends entirely on the judgment and the conscience of the politicians. That is the situation that we have in our country today. Mark note, printed in 1923. It's 100,000 marks. And if we look at this picture up here, this picture was taken in Germany with some small German kids. Now, they appear to be holding a dollar bill. The caption says $1 worth trillions of marks. It appears to be a $1 bill, but I seem to think it looks more like a Canadian after looking at some images. But a Canadian dollar, you're looking at a 10% difference, so we can still get an idea of how many marks a dollar would buy. That story is simple. A government in its financial straits finds the easiest recourse is to issue more and more money until money loses its value. The entire process is accompanied by a barrage of explanations, propaganda, and new regulations which hide the true situation from the eyes of most people. In 1923, the wildest inflation in history was raging. Often prices doubled in a few hours. A wild stampede developed to buy goods and get rid of money. By late 1923, it took 200 billion with a B to buy one loaf of bread. How did this happen to a highly civilized, intelligent nation with democratically chosen leaders? How could this happen? What happened to business, to wages, to employment? How did some people manage to save their capital while a few speculators did not want to upset the people with heavy taxes? Instead, it borrowed huge amounts of money to be paid by the enemy after Germany had won the war. Well, we know how that went. At the end of the war, the amount of money in circulation had increased fourfold. Therefore, reasoned the officials, the price inflation could hardly be blamed on the government. Actually, the ebb and flow of confidence can play a big role in the short-term trend of prices. Confidence in the market weakened. At the same time, and as a consequence, billions of hoarded marks came out of hiding and entered the marketplace. The accumulated fuel was burned. In January 1919, a mark of 170 marks would buy 1 ounce of gold. And if we look at the bottom of the chart, 87 trillion marks for that same ounce. All hope of checking the collapse of the mark vanished in January of 1923, when the French, alleging treaty violations, occupied Germany's key industrial district, the Ruhr Valley in Germany. Thousands of small businessmen tried to eke out a living by speculating in fabrics, shoes, meat, soap, clothing, any kind of produce they could get their hands on. Each fall in the mark brought a rush to the shops. People bought dozens of hats, dozens of sweaters, suits, shoes. They just bought them by the dozens. By mid-1923, workers were being paid as often as 3 times a day. Wives would meet their husbands, take their money, rush to the shops to exchange it for goods. Yet many workers also thought they were benefiting, at least in the early stages of the inflation. Their wages were increased, but it took time before they recognized that with the prices soaring, they were actually suffering a cut in income. In 1921, the mark stabilized temporarily, and business promptly weakened. By early 1922, the mark was sliding again, and business immediately revived. People were buying goods as fast as they obtained money. Companies rushed to expand plants and turn money into fixed investment. Germany was actually envied for its prosperity by many foreigners. Does this sound modern-day America, albeit with people spending stocks in addition to goods? We see the stock market just starting to go back up. People are trying to find someplace where it spends more than its income, it must borrow. If it merely borrows money from its citizens by selling them bonds, there need be no inflation. Instead of that money being spent and invested by the citizen, it is borrowed and spent by the government, but the total amount of money is not increased. When the government needs more money than its people are able or willing to lend, it monetizes the debt, which I think the Federal Reserve, as our bank, buys as many bonds as necessary to stabilize the market. It prints money on that security.
of these bonds, and then despite the facade of the government supposedly borrowing the money, the net result is the creation of printing press money. Actually, these days, the money is actually created in the form of bank deposits or check. The tax system virtually broke down. Businessmen found that by merely delaying tax payments, the depreciation in the mark would virtually eliminate their true value. But the government, lacking adequate income, felt forced to resort more and more to creating 1% of government income came from taxes. 99% came from creation of new money. On October 25th, 1923, the Reichsbank noted that it had that day printed 120,000 trillion marks. Unfortunately, the day's demand had been for 1 million trillion marks. Customarily, however, governments blame everyone and everything except themselves for inflation. Bolsheviks introduced a new currency. They printed huge amounts and soon it became almost worthless. At the same time, some of the old Tsarist currency still circulated and maintained its value in goods and terms. It appreciated enormously in terms of the new money. Why? This money was not redeemable. Nobody expected the Tsarist government to return. Why did this currency hold up? Because there was nobody to print any more of it. And on that note, I will close.
Thank you very much.